coming up on Influencing Entrepreneurs.
And a lot of times I see a lot of young people thinking about entrepreneurship because they can't think of anything else, when in reality, they should just be learning as much as they can.
After years of teaching entrepreneurship and consulting business owners, I realized that true knowledge comes from the wins and losses of those entrepreneurs. These are the stories of those business leaders. I'm Cassmer Ward, and this is Influencing Entrepreneurs. Well, today we're here with Ric Elias of Red Ventures. I appreciate you being here today, Ric.
I appreciate you being here.
So let's start. Where did your entrepreneurial journey begin?
What is really interesting, I think entrepreneurship was probably my grandfather's bloodline. It skipped my dad, and then probably got passed on to me through that. Since I was a little kid, I've always found it fascinating to dream about what would my business be one day. And since very young, I did what a lot of entrepreneurs do. I sold candy in school. I had my newspaper route. I painted houses. I hustled. Yeah. And I developed a love for kind of putting hard work into creating value and then getting paid for it.
So do you make a conscious decision once you enter into your late teen, early adulthood, that you say entrepreneurship is the way to go? Because, growing up for me, entrepreneurship wasn't really even much of a word, maybe even a bad word. It was where the unemployed went, was entrepreneurship, until people realized the value of it. Did you make a conscious decision, or did you start an industry?
Kind of both. We are such a product of our upbringing. So while my father became a doctor, and he always talked about you got to own your own shingle. And if you're a lawyer, a doctor, which is what he would have preferred me to be, just like my siblings, it really was about having your own shingle, and he calls it being the owner of the fruit cart. And so I think that in its mind was the independence, less about the entrepreneurship part of it. Quite frankly, I wasn't as bright as my siblings, and we would sit around the table, and I'm like, I better find another lane. As a kid, it was humor. Yeah. As a teenager, was athletics, and then as an adult was kind of picking a different path.
So you don't choose humor as your path or athletics as your path?
No, I build on them.
You build on them.
You'll see. We'll get going.
They're tools. But what does the path become?
To me, I was just seeking. I wouldn't call it entrepreneurship. I really ultimately felt like I wanted to have an independent lifestyle. And to me, that's what entrepreneurship represented. I couldn't put the words to it. Right. And that became being self-sufficient with my own money very young, all the way through ultimately kind of the good luck that we've had at Red Ventures has come out of that journey of seeking independence. But, if from a very unique perspective, my grandfather had immigrated from Lebanon to Puerto Rico. And long story short, they got kicked out of a ship that had an epidemic, and my grandfather was, I think, 4 years old. He got sent back to Lebanon. He was raised there, came back as a young adult, and started a bunch of businesses. None of them worked. I never met my grandpa. I know the myth of my grandpa. And
that myth, though, it's romantic. Like, started a bunch of businesses.
Sure, exactly. Yeah. Well, in eventually what happened, he became very successful. He was a very, very wealthy, successful entrepreneur in Puerto Rico. He imported potatoes and tomatoes from New Jersey and kind of controlled the market and did really well. And then in his late 50s, early 60s, he got Alzheimer's. And a little thing they found out is he wasn't paying all of his taxes. So they lost all their fortune. They went from being one of the wealthiest families in Puerto Rico to one of the poorest, literally overnight. Right. And I think that really affected, rightly so, my dad and his siblings and all of that. But I always heard this story as a kid, and my grandfather still held in high regard. But I always wonder, why didn't you pay your taxes? Right. And I think in the back of my mind, I probably wanted to try to do what he did, but do it the right way. So I think that is the intrinsic motivator inside of me, which is just trying to some level, we all trying to make our parents proud of us.
So you had the ideal there. I have to ask, did you have that that bad job? Did you have that job in industry where you're like, I can't be confined by this?
Yeah, I actually think that they're all bad fits, but not bad jobs. I think one of the things that, we don't do well enough is understand that life is as much about eliminating things as it is about opting into things. So when I look at my career, I was an accounting major because I didn't know any English, and accounting you didn't have to talk. Yeah. So everybody in accounting,
my language
yeah,
right
there
now.
you go. Everybody in accounting had to go to, back then was the big six, and I went and worked this summer there. And I'm like, I will set myself on fire if I have to do this for the rest of my life. Like we were doing kind of auditing and all that. So my personality wasn't fit for that. And so I eliminated that. Even though I was an accounting major, being a CPA wasn't for me. I have lots of good friends that are very successful CPAs.
Right. And with those programs, the expectation is that is what success looks like. It was same for me was the big six firm. And making a choice to not do that was taboo.
Yeah. How did you come to that decision?
So I knew with Big Six accounting that, and it's Big Four now, so I know I'm showing my age, but it's...
You're younger than me though.
You choose a path of audit or tax. Mm-hmm. And I kind of liked and disliked both of them. So I was, I knew at 21, 22, I couldn't make a career choice forever.
Right.
And from there I was like, that's how I ended up at the bank. And it was a program that said, you get to, a different year, we're going to move you to a different department. And I was like, entrepreneurial, looking at it into the way I live my life today is I like to do a little bit of everything. And I've always kind of built from there.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. For me then, I kept eliminating things. The next summer in college, I worked at an insurance broker in Puerto Rico, and was like, that was not for me. It was too much of a family business. And then after college, I worked at General Electric, and I'm like, big companies are not for me. And then I was fortunate that I worked in Japan for a couple of years, and I didn't want to be that far from my family, so that wasn't for me, although a lot of people love this notion of international business. And I think that, so you keep eliminating things, and then ultimately you, in that process, not only do you learn a lot about yourself, but you learn about the things that you end up liking and what you want to spend your time and energy on.
Well, realizing that you did that you eliminated stuff, retrospectively, it's easy to say that. What was it a point where, it kind of feels like, lonely or odd, like, hey, this isn't working. Is there ever a point where it plays with you a little bit, plays with your ego,
your emotions?
Our emotions.
You're in your 20s, and in your 20s, this is what life is about. There's very few things you have to do in your 20s. Right? There's a lot of things you could do. And so that's the age to really try your way. And then when I came back and went to business school, I thought I was ready. I was in my kind of mid to late 20s, and I thought, okay, I'm ready to go start something. And I got a great advice from a professor, which is, you're not ready, go and learn on someone else's nickel. Go and learn something about an industry, find, kind of a need that is not being served, and then, go from that position. And that was great advice. And it was not, at that point, the dot-com boom was happening and all that. So
right.
the easy thing was to do that. But I really appreciated the fact that I went, and for 5 years, I learned how to hire people. I learned how to fire people. I learned how to run a P&L. I learned how to, deal with HR. You learn a lot of things, and you're learning them on someone else's nickel, and you're learning them in a system where you're getting a lot of reps. Intuition is nothing else than having seen something before. And what I see is a lot of people think of entrepreneurship as a career. And if you don't have enough intuition, if you haven't gotten enough of the reps, if you don't know something well enough, if you're not clear, at least hypothetically, about a problem you're trying to solve, you're kind of gambling. Right. And you just have a hunch, or, so.
It's almost a philosophy or a religion at some point.
Yeah, and a lot of times I see a lot of young people thinking about entrepreneurship because they can't think of anything else. When in reality, they should just be learning as much as they can. They should be finding environments where, the company does stuff that is interesting in an industry that is forward-leaning, on a culture that they will fit in, and hopefully growing so that they get opportunities ahead of their time. And then eventually you'll figure out what is it that kind of appeals to you, and do you see a problem that is not being solved, and can you make a run at it?
Well, and it's hard because in today's climate right now, entrepreneurship is kind of like, it's got a spotlight on it. It's like a celebrity in and of itself, and there's too many examples of the people that made an overnight success story and not the stories of those that struggled along the way.
Yeah, the vast majority did not. And by the way, I think that was the story of yesterday. If you and I are sitting here a year from now, starting a business is going to get a lot harder.
Right.
And the money, the days of kind of free money are kind of done.
Learn business, you learn all the aspects of a business on someone else's dime. But that's the last thing you eliminated before you committed to Red Ventures?
I knew that I wanted to try to do something. I had learned a lot around direct marketing, direct response, so that was kind of the muscle, but it's not like I knew. I just had a perch from where to launch from. But what we set out to do in 2000 to what we ended up doing in 2005 to what we became in 2010 to what we grew into in 2015 to what we were in 2020 to what we will be in 2025, completely different. And I think when an entrepreneur comes to me, if I were to invest, which I do a lot less of just from a distraction standpoint, I really don't judge the business model or the business plan all that much.
But so you were mentioning though that like as you talk to entrepreneurs, it is about the person. It's not how good their business plan is. It's not the presentation.
The business plan is seldomly, if ever, the business that makes it. So if that's a statement that is true, which I believe is to be true, then why put so much weight in the business plan itself? You want to make sure that there's a need that they're trying to address, but more importantly, does a team have the temperament to keep evolving and changing? And do they demonstrate the humility to accept the kind of feedback the market is going to give them and not get too wedded to the original idea? So I think that's, it's a little bit, and that comes with experience. If you've never done something, you have a business plan, you get married to the business plan, and it's almost guaranteed failure if that's the only thing you try.
So what opportunity did you see that started Red Ventures?
Looking back, it was a terrible idea. It was really.
What was that idea?
No, it was just, at the time there were all these internet companies that were overpriced. Sounds familiar? Yeah. So it's the first vintage of what's going on now. A lot of people think that what you're seeing today is reminiscent of early 2000. The difference is that there's plenty of businesses now making real money. Back then, there was no money. It was
again ideal, like, oh, this is where the world's going. Yeah. Money will come later, and it didn't.
And it didn't. So we thought that those big online brands that have raised all that capital will need offline marketing to really advertise themselves, because back then online advertising wasn't a thing. It was 98% of budgets were spending offline, and the best way to do it was to do traditional direct response marketing, not just advertising, which is a different. So that's what we were trying to do, is help the new online brands do offline advertising. The problem is by April the internet imploded, or that version of it, and there was no customers and there was no money to spend. So we raised a couple $1 million, bootstrap from friends, it was friends and family, like Dan and I put our own money, and by November we had 110,000 left and no revenue. So,
but that doesn't sound as much. Well, but even that doesn't sound as a bad idea, but just bad timing.
I think it was both. Sometimes you can be both. It's like looking back, you were trying to solve a problem that was not sustainable. Therefore, it's a bad idea. We caught maybe the best or the worst timing. Maybe if we would have been a year earlier, we would have gotten more momentum, but then that may have been worse. Right. The fact is, our plane never took off. We literally stayed on the runway with we never took off.
So you're able to survive the bust. Does the company change fundamentally?
Oh yeah, no, we literally had to let go of everybody and everything and go back to the studs and say, okay, we made a commitment to our investors. A lot of them were our business school friends, and I wanted to go to my reunions, and it's like, we got to hustle back. I think taking someone's money is a big responsibility, and at least the way we see it, I see it. And
actually, real quick, not a lot of people think that. People think you just go out and raise capital, or people think it's available. With the numerous investors I've spoke with, to say that taking somebody's money is a big responsibility, you're the first person that's actually come out to say that, because there's a weight to that.
Yeah, I just think that depends what is it that you're building. If you're building a network of people that trust you, that you trust, if you're building, character and reputation in your firm, you got to do the right thing, right? And someone is giving you hard-earned money for you to do something with, believing in you. And I don't know what higher level of responsibility exists to that, at least from my point of view. But so we literally had, mind you, we were making $0. We were both starting our families. And we basically had a very bleak future. So we went back and started selling kind of consulting programs on direct marketing to big brands, Bell South, Duke Energy, a bunch of hire us here and there. And it gave us enough momentum to hire a few people again. And what we don't say a lot is we lost enough money in our first year in 2000 that it took us 2001, 2, and 3 to make up what we lost. So technically, we've been in business for 4 years,
right?
And we have made $0.
Yeah, you're just net.
Yeah, that's not a great story of success.
Right.
So a lot of people think, well, man, you guys kind of have an attitude of humility or a behavior of humility. Well, when you start the way we started,
right?
And I'm glad we did. That was probably one of the greatest gifts we got.
Yeah, and a lot of people start the story of when you're already successful. Though they don't talk about 2000 to 2000.
Yeah, but to me, that's very much part of the success. I think our challenges is what defines us, not the things we accomplish.
I'll be honest, I could probably talk to you for 2 hours on your philosophy for raising capital versus what those first years are, but I've got a lot I'd really like to cover. Along the way, your perspective changes a little bit. You're involved with Miracle on the Hudson. What is it that you to this day walk away with that you're like, that thing happened and these things changed in my life, or this one thing changed in my life?
Listen, we are not meant to have certainty of death, enough time to reflect upon life, and enough youth to come back and do it differently. So in that context, everything changed.
So with that appreciation, is there, you've had time to reflect on that. You've continued your success. Is it something that's at top of mind? Is there, a golden rule from that, or a golden lesson that came out of that? You even asked me early on, like, what is the lesson you learned from that?
Yeah, Cass, the way I view this, and this is really kind of a Simon Sinek philosophy, there's no winning in life. Life is an infinite game. There's no winning in business. Yet we approach everything as a win or lose kind of thing. So the only goal of the game is to stay in the game, especially if you like the game. So my view of this business is I want us to stay current and relevant and in a good place so we can stay in the game, but not so that there's a photo op moment where you're like, oh, you went public and now that's all a false premise.
But to be fair, you have been winning along the way. The Ernst & Young Entrepreneurship of the Entrepreneur of the Year, the Carolinas Entrepreneur Hall of Fame. So I mean,
yeah, but those things, Simon Perez said, awards are like perfume, nice to smell, dangerous to swallow. You didn't win anything. You know why I won? We have a group of people that come to work every day for a bigger purpose than themselves, and I am a part of that. That's winning. Awards are they're actually almost the beginning of the end. So the fact that I get up in the morning and I'm excited to come to work, the fact that I don't know if it's a Friday or a Monday, the only difference is how tired I am, that's winning.
I have a different reason why I think you're winning. So when we reached out to you is based on all of that. Well, that's great, and I love having this conversation. Is the social aspects that true entrepreneurship is on how they're giving back and the philanthropy they do, and that to me, with what you've been working on, has been to me that's winning. Like when you realize, as you said, you don't win at life, but really at the same time the impact you're looking to have on the community or the world itself. Tell me about where does that start?
I view that more of kind of an opportunity, a responsibility versus, a winning or losing. I think, I think it was Jeff Bezos a while ago said, the good news is that when you're doing impact work, you do a little, that's a lot. If you change one person's life. So to me, this is the way of intertwining everything into one platform. I want to live the rest of my journey as part of this platform, and the way to do it is to do all the things that I want to do in life as part of the same thing. And we've been lucky that we've attracted a lot of people to the company that feel similarly, that feel that, the reason to do, well in business is so you can do good in the world. And that's a big driver of who we are. And it's not for everybody. There's a lot of people that, come here. I'm like, well, what do you mean we're not going public and we're all gonna hit it quick and whatever? That's not for us. This business will be here hopefully 10, 20, 30 years from now. It will be different, and maybe someone else is running it. Someone else will be running it. The question is when. Unless I run it into the ground, which will be fine too. It's just part of life.
So I feel real quick in our conversation, I feel you're underselling your involvement.
But that's who I am. I don't undersell anything. That's who I am. Like, I'm just like, there's nothing about it that I wouldn't live by.
Okay. So as we talk,
I'm not giving you what you want.
You're not giving me,
but I'm giving you who I am.
You're giving me who you are, but you're hiding some of the best parts, to be honest with you, because there is, we talked about the celebrity that comes with entrepreneurship, that we see these people on Instagram or LinkedIn showing the wealth they've accumulated. And then we have the story of somebody who's like, I'm doing well, and now my job is to do well with the world. And that's part of your story. You've talked about your employees winning, with the giving pledge. That's the world winning. That's other people. So I got to ask, why so modest about it?
There's two types of people in the world: those who are humble and those who are about to be humble. And you know what? I told you a little bit about our beginning, and we do understand that a lot of our success has been, yes, hard work, but a lot of it has been complete randomness and luck. And the day that you start believing it's because you're better than, or you deserve it, is the day that it all kind of goes away, and therefore the game ends. Then you lose because you just want to stay in the game. So I view it more as, we're very fortunate to be in this spot, and we just got to stay in this spot for as long as we can. And anything that distracts from that is not who we are.
Is there an aspect of making the world a better place? Like, is there a place there that you like to spend your time that says, these are the causes that are important to me, that I can have a bigger impact? And we won't talk about financially, just like where we can spend our time, our efforts.
I think you just got to be disciplined. We treat our social impact work just like we treat any of our businesses, and we run it the same way. We just, we don't have a revenue and an EBIT number. We have other metrics that we run it by, but our business, our social impact work is as rigorous of a business as any of our businesses. And so the question, to answer your question directly, we want to focus on a place where we think we can make a real difference, and we want to dense up our bed and not dilute. It's the same principles of life and business. We just want to be able to kind of drive enough force and energy to specific things. We have picked, kind of this cohort of 16 to 24 underrepresented youth in our country, and we think that there's many ways to do that, and we're doing it, geographically centric, riding the rails of the system, collecting other partners that want to be a part of it. But again, no pride of authorship. This is an organization that belongs to itself. And this is all group on the road to hire, and we're touching over 1,000 young adults in our community right now in a very meaningful way. But that's just our responsibility, nothing else.
I love your connection, whether it's a business and their employees, whether it's community development, whether it's giving back to the world. That the common theme is taking care of the people. Taking care of the people in the organization. And I really hope more people hear that, because it really is what this is all about. Going back to what you said, that's what winning is.
Yeah, listen, every employee, we have 5,000 employees or close to right now at Red Ventures. All of them are going to leave. I'm going to leave. Right? And I think a lot of times we have this this relationship where we think we're going to be together forever, or we expect, or we are hurt when someone leaves. I really want people to stay here longer than they thought. I want them to develop more than they would have otherwise. I want them to look back at this chapter of their career as a very meaningful one. That's winning. Right? When someone can look back and say, this is the way you treat people. This is something I learned when I was at Red Ventures. We did something. Making a little bit more profit, becoming a little bit more famous, that's not winning, right? So I think organizations have an opportunity to train the next generation of businesses and business leaders, not only in the technical aspects of running a business, which I think we do a very good job, but really in the broader responsibility of business. That's what drives us.
I can't think of any better parting words than that. So thank you so much for your time. I appreciate you spending it with us.
I really enjoyed it, and thanks for having me.
Influencing Entrepreneurs is brought to you by the Entrepreneurs Organization of Charlotte and Spherical Media. Be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel at youtube.com/Nexagy Education or visit CassmerWard.com.